Good morning everyone, and welcome to this morning's sunrise drive here in the Sabi Sands, South Africa. We're on Djuma Private Game Reserve and we've got off to an incredible start. Would you believe it? We actually heard these lions calling this morning as we dropped off all the crew in the final control room this morning, and it didn't take us long to find them. So very happy and lucky, I guess, to start off after having a few days leave to come back to such a beautiful site like this. So very happy to see the Nkuhuma pride of lion, which are 8 lion. We can only see 6 in the current shot in the background, but Andrew, who's on camera this morning, will now show you one of the other individuals. He's kindly getting up now and moving into view. But it looks like it's going to have a quick stretch before then, and it decided to lie down. And then, as I was saying, there's 6 members basically directly ahead of us. And then 1 female who looks like one of the adult lioness within this pride, lying up a little bit away from the rest of the pride. And they haven't moved very far from where they were found yesterday afternoon with Mark at Twin Dams. Here we are, like I said, very close to the final control room and just behind or just south of the Vuyatela Dam. So sadly, they didn't pop into the view of the waterhole camera last night, I don't think, but they were very close, and at some stage today may head down to the waterhole for a drink. But at the moment, as you can see, they are all very relaxed, and I'm told that they had been feeding on a buffalo sometime yesterday or the day before, so they are still fairly full-bellied from a large meal, and when they are full-bellied they are less inclined to move huge distances in search of food, and that's why they haven't moved too far in the course of last night. And Nikki and Tara are in the final control room this morning. And like I said, Andrew's on camera. It's always so wonderful getting back to the bush after having a few days away. And it's been interesting to note the fairly significant changes in the vegetation after the 2 downpours of rain that we've had in the last week. And there's already a kiss of green, especially on these open grassy areas that we're starting to notice. So it's good news for the herbivores, as they're going to have a little bit of extra food. It was very dry before we did get these last 2 downpours of rain. Well, as you can see, they do have their heads up and are listening a lot to the sounds around them. We've had zebra calling nearby in the quarantine clearings that got their attention, and I also heard the hyena den site. Well, I'm fairly certain it is the hyena den site, but certainly hyena calling in that direction, so it might be worth us heading across there at some stage. But certainly worth spending a bit more time with these lion. There's 2 more vehicles arriving into the sighting at the moment. And it's a crisp, cool morning. It's 16 degrees Celsius or 61 degrees Fahrenheit with a humidity of 86%. Very pleasant morning to be out, and you would have noticed we've got 8/8 cloud cover, so it's a cloudy day, but we'll see how long that lasts. It can often change as the sun comes out. It may burn off these clouds. And now that you can see one lioness up and moving, you'll notice that she does have a full belly. And like I said, it's believed to be a buffalo that they had last fed on. Mark told me that there was a hyena seen coming out of the area where they were eventually found with a buffalo's leg. Morning, Texan, go ahead. Negative, I haven't seen them. Just the Nkuhumas that I've noticed. So Texan, one of the other guides, asked if there were any of the large males from the Matumba coalition in this area, and I was just letting him know that I hadn't seen them. What is this lion so interested in up ahead there? She does seem to be...
There's a bird on the floor.
Oh, is it a bird? She could be stalking it. Oh, it's just that Birchall's starling, it looks like. And they can be very playful. And even though it's got very small chance of catching that bird, it appears like it is going to possibly try. So let's watch closely. Any small movement will trigger their natural instinct to chase prey down, even if it is the smallest of animals. And in the past I've seen lion even being intrigued by small animals like mongoose and tortoises, but this one now has decided against the initial plan to chase down that little starling. I've just got a message through from the final control mentioning that there have been a lot of the viewers welcoming me back, and thank you very much for your warm welcomes. It is so during the course of the day. And I'm almost certain that they're going to be found in this general area for the course of today and into this afternoon's drive, which will certainly help me in planning what to do this morning. Like I said, they are still quite full-bellied and we are not expecting too much action from them. However, if some buffalo head into this area, they could well show some interest in taking them down. And it was just a few weeks ago that the same pride of lion was found in the same area, and Brent sat with them for about 2 hours, and they did absolutely nothing really in those 2 hours. But eventually some buffalo arrived onto the scene, and then we were treated to an incredible sighting of them sneaking up on the buffalo and eventually essentially being taught a lesson by the buffalo, as they are very hard animals to bring down, especially during the daylight hours when the lion lack the cover of darkness. But that could happen a little bit later on. The buffalo usually arrive at the waterhole a little bit later on in the morning once it's heated up, and on a cool day like today, I'm not sure if they're going to be arriving anytime soon. So I think it might be worth us heading off in a little while and seeing what the hyenas are up to, because like I said, I did hear some audio coming from the area of their den site, and they might be a little bit more active than these lion. Now, for any of you who may be joining for the first time, welcome on board, and just to let you know, you can ask questions at any stage, and to do that you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Andrew's just spotted an African harrier hawk flying past.
I think there were two of them.
Were there two? There could well have been. I only saw the one. And quite interesting that a bird of prey has got up so early in the morning. They often wait until the ground is heated up and hot air thermals rise up off the earth, making it easier for them to fly. But that one's obviously hungry and wanting to start its morning foraging a little bit earlier than normal. It's wonderful to have some lion back on the property. Before I left last week Friday, we had been only treated to a few glimpses of the lion as they crossed through corners of our property, but now we've got this pride right in the heart of Djuma, which makes for great prospects, at least for today and this afternoon's drive. And it really is interesting to note the changes in their behavior depending, well, especially on where they move and how their territories not vary, but the time that they spend in various parts of their territory varies. And there's two main contributing factors that will cause them to move differently through their territory. One is the presence of other lion in the area, and another very important factor is food. And it appears like there's a lot of buffalo further to the north. Large, not only this pride of lion, but other prides of lion as well. And I think that's why they did spend a fair amount of time away from us over the last few weeks. Very happy to have them back, though. It's always interesting to note how they move around when they are not highly active like this, and what causes these small movements of them. There's no real change in temperature, which is often a reason why they will move into shadier spots, but they still, every now and then one will get up and move a few meters. And as much as we watch them and try and learn and understand what causes their behavior, a lot of our questions will remain unanswered, and only they will know the answer to, which also keeps things interesting for us out here, because as much as we may think we get to know these animals, they always surprise us with their movements. Well, Andrew chose a very good time to pan across to that lioness, and she
Super lucky.
just performed a small yawn for us. She looks like one of the adult lioness within the pride, and it's two older lioness with 3 sub-adults and two smaller cubs, and then the one kind of 3-year-old male is probably there and thereabout now, that make up this pride. They're a formidable pride, 8 lions in total, of which 6 will be able to contribute to the hunting. The 2 smaller cubs are not quite there yet. And they do have the ability to take down buffalo, and if you use that as a measure to gauge how good lions are at hunting, it's the ultimate test where the lion can bring down buffalo. They're a very formidable adversary that can cause a lot of damage to lion, using their horns to throw them away if they get too close to them. And for those of you who were watching this pride of lion attempt to hunt buffalo last time we were here at Vuyatela Dam with myself and Brent, you would have got to see the buffalo really making a fool of the lion, and it does go like that sometimes. We've just got a question through from Lucky One on Twitter. Good morning, Lucky One, and welcome on board with us. Lucky One is interested to know how many adults there are in this pride, and there's 2 mature lioness with 3 slightly younger sub-adults, 2 even smaller cubs that are just on a year of age, and then one young male who's around 3 years of age now. So a mixed batch of ages within the pride, as there often will be in prides, and I'm just going to take this opportunity to reposition. It looks like they are going to all start moving. I just want to make sure we're in a good spot for that. We could, if we are lucky, get to see them playing when they do move around. If the whole pride does get up now, it may induce a little bit of playful activity amongst them. So that's something we can hope for now. Just got a question through from Ellen in Illinois. Good morning, Ellen. Ellen is interested to know whether the lions and wild dog will get thicker coats during the winter and whether they'll shed their fur during the summer. And there's certainly maybe small differences, but it's not noticeable to us. well, I certainly haven't noticed any considerable changes in their fur relative to the summer and the winter. But there may be a very small change that is not noticeable to us. It is a very good question though, Ellen, because the temperatures vary greatly from summer to winter, and I certainly wouldn't want to be walking around out here without a lot of warm clothing during the winter. It can be crispy cold evenings. We've just got a question through from Laura in Indiana. Good morning, Laura. Laura's interested to know whether these lions have TB, and if they do, how it affects them. And most of the lion in this area will be infected with tuberculosis, and they get this from the buffalo that they feed on. And it will affect them, but usually only in times of difficulty. So you may notice that young cubs within prides will have small protrusions or kind of growths on their elbows, and it's more noticeable on them than the adults because they are often the ones that get less food than the adults. So it's an example of how when it is not the most favorable conditions for lions, their symptoms of TB will show, and occasionally if prides are unlucky enough, it can really affect them negatively when they are going through a tough spell of hunting. But at the moment this pride all seem very healthy, and thankfully the TB that they do have is not affecting them greatly. The birds are really beginning to wake up now, and Andrew just a few moments ago panned across to a magpie shrike, and that's one of the birds you can hear calling now. But there's also starlings and francolins that are adding to the morning chorus. We've just got another question through from Eileen, and to all of you who are sending questions through, thank you very much. Eileen is asking whether it's typical for a pride of lions just to have one male in it, like this pride does. And no, that's not necessarily the case, Eileen. Actually, in this case, it's interesting because he's not the dominant male, even though he is fairly sizable. He's one of the sons of the lioness that we are watching. And in the coming months, I'm fairly certain he is going to be kicked out of this area by his fathers. They've accepted him within their territory because he is young. But you may have noticed that on the opening shot he did actually try and mount one of the other lioness, which was possibly his mother. So he is becoming more sexually active, or sexually interested at least. And this won't be tolerated by his fathers for obvious reasons, because it wouldn't do any good for the gene pool for him to be mating with any of his family. And that is how nature naturally ensures that males will move out far away from their family pride before they become sexually active. And more often than not, it's the prides of lioness that occur together. Oh, look at this. This is what I was hoping for a little bit earlier. But as I was saying, Eileen, it's usually the females that band together and create prides of lioness, and the males will also often band together with brothers and form coalitions of males. And depending on how big the coalition of males may be, they may acquire a territory which is very large and have 3 or 4 or possibly even 5 prides of lioness within their big territory. So the males will compete with males for territory, the females will compete with other prides of females for their territory, and if a coalition of males is lucky enough to acquire a big territory with lots of prides of lioness, they won't necessarily stay with the lioness. It's more important for them to move around and make sure that no other males are trespassing on their turf. And to be able to make sure that there are no trespassers, it means that they can't just stay with one pride of lion, and will move around a lot, stopping in with the ladies when either they're in season or when there's food around. If there's no food or no mating opportunities, the males would rather be elsewhere. And it's typically 2 males that we see with this pride. 2 big males from the Matimba coalition, who was initially a coalition of 4. Now there's one lion that's seen something. It's one of the youngsters, but let's have a closer look and see what it is that's got its attention. It's very thick in the direction they're looking in, so I can't see anything at this stage. But judging by all the other lions' body language, it may not be something very interesting. Although that looks like it could be an adult now that's showing a little bit more initiative and intent. What could it be that they've seen? There's very good cover for them to stalk here, and they are heading onto the fringe of a thicket, which will provide them, like I say, with great cover. And let's see what it is that's coming their way. The squirrels just caught the message that there's some lion here, and that's the noise you can hear in the background. It's a tree squirrel alarm calling. Well, that's not going to help their hunting, because whatever it is that is approaching this open clearing is now going to have heard the squirrels alarming and be on extra high alert. Now, we can't see too much from here, but I am confident that we could get into a position where we can see a little bit better without interfering on what's going on here. So bear with me for a second. We'll just keep a very wide berth, and like I say, make sure we don't impact on whatever's about to happen here. But I would like to get us into a position where at least we can see what's going on. body language seems to have decreased in purpose, but they are still listening and looking into the vegetation up ahead. I wonder what it is that could be moving through there. But as Andrew is showing us now, it's thick and very difficult to see. Again, a good example of how much better their senses are than ours. Even in this thick vegetation, they can often sense animals coming, and it would be their hearing, I'm sure, that alerted them to this potential prey, not necessarily their sight. The wind is blowing from the lion towards us, so it's in their favor for now. And possibly they could have smelt something. And like I said a few moments ago, it can be that when you're sitting watching lions sleeping, that something interesting stumbles upon them, and then all of a sudden you've got yourself an incredible sighting. So they may not necessarily be actively hunting, but an opportunity might present itself to them. And that's why it's often difficult to leave sightings like this, because you know by hanging around you, anything could arrive in this general area. There is a waterhole very close to us, and as it does become dry as we go into winter, a lot of animals will frequent the waterholes, and the lions certainly know this. And maybe that's why they decided to yesterday spend their whole day based at Twin Dams, and now today it appears that they'll be at Vuyatela Dam. We've just got a question through from Rena on Twitter. Good morning, Rena. Rena would like to know, how much longer will it take before the sub-adult male in this pride gets kicked out? And it's difficult to say, Rena, because the personalities and relationships with their fathers will all vary between lions and their male cubs. But anywhere from the age where he's at now, he could expect to start getting some pressure to move out. I'm actually quite surprised that he hasn't started getting more pressure. He is at an age where he is becoming more sexually active and beginning to explore mating even with its mothers and sisters. So it's showing all the signs that it's not going to be accepted or tolerated much longer. But only time will tell, and won't it be interesting to see that event unfold? It is incredible how harsh nature can be, because his fathers would be loving and caring only up to a point where they'll turn completely on him and then chase him away. But it's a necessity out here, and it'll be far more useful for the greater good of all lion for him to head off and spread his genetics in a different area, and not with either his mothers or his sisters. So it's nature's way of just ensuring that there's genetic diversity between the different prides of lion. The tricky thing for this individual is that he's got no brothers, and if he did have brothers, they would all be kicked out together, and that way at least have some safety in numbers as they go out on their way. But he will be all alone, which makes for obviously much harder hunting, and not only hunting alone, but also you'll have to defend himself against other dominant males that he comes across in the coming years. You'll often find young male lion that are either alone or in small coalitions, but inexperienced, you could say, will fly below the radar and slink through territories of larger males without vocalizing, without scent marking, trying as best as they can to be undetected, and that way avoid any trouble. Well, now I think what we should do is possibly head off and see what else is going on. It's always a difficult decision to make, because just like we saw their body language earlier certainly indicated that there was something potential prey moving in the general area, and if they did come close enough to the lion, we would be able to see the lions chase whatever it was that it may be that they're interested in hunting. But in the same breath, there's no guarantee that anything is going to come. So I am leaning towards heading off and seeing what else is out there. There's great prospects to potentially come back here later if we hear any radio updates of buffalo moving into the area. And certainly this afternoon's drive is going to provide some good opportunities to view these lions. So it might be most worthwhile for us to head off and go and look for something else and make the most of all the other animals and exciting opportunities that there are out here for us to enjoy. I think the lion have been a great start, but I'm interested to head over to the hyena den site and see what's going on, because all the lion now are fast asleep. Morning, Ryan. How are you doing? Thank you very much, sir. I'm not copying you too well, sadly. Oh, wow, look at this. Going to try and find a gap. Please don't fly away. Well, that was the African harrier hawk. I'm just going to reverse a little bit. Hopefully we can still watch it hunting. There we go. So this is the same bird that Andrew spotted a little bit earlier as it flew past, and it's actually actively hunting. Now, the interesting thing about this bird is that it's got the ability to disjoint its legs in order to search in cavities in the trees. Now let's watch closely, and we're going to hopefully see it dangling around, trying to get its talons into small cavities within this old marula tree. And you often see them hanging upside down with one foot as they use the other leg to search these cavities for any snacks. It could be small mammals living in the cavities of the tree, even small reptiles, and often baby birds. And you can see it's actively searching for a hole. So this is a highly specialized hunter, and will acquire almost all of its prey from cavities within trees. And you can see it's certainly not its first time clambering around looking for these holes. And let's hope we get lucky and it finds one, because it can be really entertaining to watch them, as they do have to often twist and contort and get into some fairly precarious positions in order to get their talons within the holes. Doesn't seem to be having much luck on this marula tree. Oh, it looks like it's found a hole there. No. I thought the way it had landed almost upside down there, that it had found a hole. I'm going to try and stay with this bird for as long as we can, and even though it's just flown off, it probably hasn't gone far, it's probably just gone to the next tree, and it's very rare for us to see them actively hunting. So I'm going to try our best to make the most of the situation and see if we can't get a glimpse of it digging into the cavity of a tree. Where has it gone now? Flew down in this direction. Couldn't see exactly where it landed, but we're just going to have a quick look around, and if we don't have any luck finding it, we will continue with the plan that I was initially hoping to go ahead with, and that's to go and see what's happening at the hyena den sites. There was a lot of audio coming from there a little bit earlier this morning. Sadly, it looks like the African harrier hawk has flown a little bit too far for us to find him, and I've got no idea where it is now, so we will continue. But great to see that. It's the first time I've managed to share with you the behavior of that bird. We very often see them flying from A to B, but seldom get to show you them searching for their food. Next time, hopefully, you'll be able to see them clambering in these holes looking for food. And they do have the incredible ability to be able to disjoint their legs. They've got double jointed legs that can twist and contort in order to get their talons deep into the cavities within the trees. Any stations at the Mpisikaya? Okay, well, just for interest's sake, it's nice to know that the lions came down through this area. I'm trying to find some clear tracks, but I can't see their tracks coming towards us on this road. So they obviously came here before they headed down to the small clearing where we saw them a bit earlier. Oh, here we go. So on the left-hand side of the road, Andrew should be able to hopefully show you some of the lion tracks. There we go. So not very easy for you to see, but those are the lion paws coming towards us. And it's so useful for us to take a close look at our bushveld news, which gets left on the road networks for us. Great updates for us to be able to follow and then be able to track down lion and leopard and all the other animals. It's a critical part of finding animals in this area, tracking them down, and it's these footprints in the sand that help us to do that. It's not the only thing we can use. This morning we were lucky enough to hear the lions roaring, and that made it a little bit easier than tracking them down, that's for certain. Just got a question through from Sherry in Ohio. Good morning, Sherry, and welcome. Sherry's interested to know whether the African harrier hawk that we've just been viewing would have good color vision, or would it see in black and white? And in all likelihood it's going to have good color vision, and the reason for that is that most of the daytime animals, basically animals that spend their time out hunting during the day or just living during the day, will have good color vision. They'll have more cones in their eyes than rods, and those are the two main parts that will build up the color viewing part of your eye. The color you get to see is received into your cones, and therefore the daytime animals will often have more cones than rods. Nocturnal animals like lion and leopard, for example, not necessarily strictly nocturnal, but animals with good night vision, will have more rods than cones, and those rods will allow them to have great nocturnal vision, but it comes with a sacrifice in that they will see in black and white. So most of your daytime animals and birds of prey like the African harrier hawk will have better color vision. Although that specific bird of prey won't rely on seeing prey from a different distance, like a lot of other birds of prey that may hunt and hawk their prey from far up in the sky. A lot of the African harrier hawk's prey will be hidden in the cavities of trees, and therefore it's more important just to find the little holes in which to dig its claws into, as opposed to spotting the actual prey. So we are now arriving at the hyena den sites. In the next minute or so we'll know whether we're in luck. There's a fork-tailed drongo sitting very close to the road, and it seems quite relaxed, so we'll take this opportunity to show you a close-up image of this bird. You can also see that there's a slight breeze this morning, and both the bird and the leaves are getting blown around a little bit. It's a bird we often see following the large herbivores like elephants and buffalo, as when those large animals move through the bush, they chase up little insects, and It makes for easy prey for these fork-tailed drongos. You can see the very distinctive fork in its tail. Occasionally you see them with a double fork, and we have seen one or two of them flying around here. But a very clever little bird that has learned to follow the large animals that will flush up little prey species for them. And this is certainly the closest that I've managed to bring you all to one. It seems to be having a small chat with itself. Not sure exactly
Is this its call or is it mimicking now?
Well, that's a good question that Andrew's just asked. They've got a lot of different calls that they can make, and they have been known to mimic other birds and even animals. This, I think, is just its own little mumbling murmur to itself that we can hear it doing. When they do mimic other birds or mammals even, it's in order to achieve something. So an example of that would be they may let off the alarm call of a mongoose, for example, and that way all the mongoose will run off and hide and sometimes drop whatever prey they may be feeding on at the time, and the drongo can then fly down and feed on their kill. Obviously it can't do this every time to the mongoose, every time they get a kill, otherwise they'll wisen up to the drongo. But if it does a combination of actual real alerts, oh, there it's just headed off to try and nibble on something, and I'm not sure if it had any luck, but it landed on the road just in front of us there. So it is mainly small insects that they will feed on, like grasshoppers, or any moths or even butterflies that get chased up by the large animals that move around. But in this case, as you can see, it flew down and tried to catch something without the aid of any large animals. So they will use a combination of different hunting techniques, or like I said earlier, they will use the alarm of an animal that they may sometimes help to detect potential predators. Like an eagle, for example, soaring above the drongo could let off the alarm call and help the mongoose and make them aware. But then it could also pull a sneaky maneuver and let off an alarm call when there's nothing actually of threat nearby, and that way be able to steal whatever it is that the mongoose drop in order to retreat to safety. And a lot of the carnivores, be it bird or mammal, will be very wise and also very opportunistic when it comes to getting their food, and sometimes they will take a few moral shortcuts, like stealing from the mongoose, or I guess you could look at lion and leopard. Lion will steal from leopard whenever they get the opportunity. So there's a few kind of unethical maneuvers that some of these animals will perform in order to get their meals. It just flew down and caught a tiny little insect. I couldn't even see what it was. But at least it's having a good morning hunting. I'm going to leave it to its own devices and have a look and see if these hyena are active. Well, as you can see, we are in luck. And there's quite a few hyena around. This is a youngster we can see standing up. Well, younger than the larger two that it is next to at the moment. And you can tell this from the color of its coats and also the darkness of its spots. So its spots are very prominent, and it's got quite a light coat and an immaculate coat, you could say. So it's in great condition, and it's a young one. The older two, which look to be like, well, one's certainly one of the mothers. The other one I don't recognize. The closest one to us is one of the mothers. She's got very raggedy ears. She's the mother of one of the two litters of cubs. There's two different litters of cubs within this den. And as fierce as they can also be loving and caring. And as you can see, this one was gently licking the leg there. I'm not sure if there was a small wound or what it was exactly that it was licking, but it was showing some affection towards this large female.
And I think there's a youngster.
Yeah, and there was a youngster hiding behind there, and it's busy suckling. It appears to have a full belly. This individual. So they obviously had a good night out last night. I always wonder what they get up to every evening. They cover such large distances and live such interesting lives in the way that they acquire their meals. In this area they will rely a lot on stealing from leopard, which is one of the apex predators in the area, and they are numerous and also not very dangerous for the hyena to steal from. Lion pose a much larger threat and a lot more risk when it comes to stealing food. So the hyena within the Sabi Sands have almost specialized in stealing from leopard, and it's uncommon to see them interacting with lion. And it's also important for me to mention that it's not only stealing that the hyena are good at. They are also formidable hunters, and in certain areas of Africa they've actually done research and they found that lion will steal more from hyena than hyena from lions. So there will be reversed roles in certain areas. It was actually on the Djuma waterhole camera a few years ago that we managed to document hyena hunting. So they also do hunt in this area, and that's certain. It chased an impala into Vuyatela Dam. There's another hyena that's just slinking off in the background there. It could be the other mother, it looked like, and maybe she spent enough time nursing her cubs and is now heading off to relax. Just to remind everyone, it is a live and interactive safari, so if you would like to ask questions at any stage, please send them through on Twitter with hashtag Safari Live, or on email to questions They keep lifting up their heads and listening, and the reason for that is there's this slight breeze this morning. And this breeze is going to confuse animals like the hyena when it comes to detecting any potential threats that would be approaching the den site. They can often be hearing just the leaves rustling in the grass, and that could get their attention and just make them double check. So we are noticing them lifting up their heads every now and then and listening, but they are just being fooled by the wind, or not necessarily fooled by the wind, but they have to double check that it isn't actually anything dangerous nearby. They certainly would have heard the lion calling this morning, the same lion that we were looking at, and they'll know that they're nearby. I've actually been checking for any tracks of lion around the den sites, because they did come past fairly close by, and will sometimes pop in and try and attack hyena at their den sites when they are passing nearby. It doesn't appear to be the case this morning though, or from last night, as I've seen no tracks left on the earth around this den. And it is a really interesting sequence of changes. When they are born, they are little brown when they are born, and at 3 months of age they start to develop spots, so their coat lightens, and it will continue to lighten until it looks like the closest hyena towards us, the one on the bottom left of the shot. And you'll notice how it does have a light coat with dark black splotches, and it's also quite a thick, considerable coat. You can almost see a small mane up its spine onto its neck. So this is when they are at their fluffiest and best looking, I feel, at this age. Then if we pan across to one of the adults, you'll notice that their fur does seem to thin considerably, so it's not nearly as fluffy, not nearly as light in color, and the spots become a lot less prominent. There's still, I guess, that mane of fur up along the spine, but the rest of the body has got a very, very thin coat when the adults are fully grown. So great for us to be able to see the difference between a sub-adult and a fully grown adult. What would also be great, got up, because then we'd be able to show you the coats at probably around 4.5 months of age. I'm guessing the cub that's suckling is at about that age, 4 to 5 months of age. I just heard some good news on the radio. One of the other vehicles managed to get a brief glimpse of what they thought was Karula, who is a female leopard. She was heading into our property around Buffelshoek Dam, so on our northeastern corner of Djuma. She was heading south and west, so heading back towards us, and sadly it's very thick in that area and he's lost visual of her, but she was heading in the right direction, and again, good prospects for possibly later on this morning or even this afternoon. There's been no other sign of leopard this morning, just to keep you all updated. Updates on the radio of anyone having any luck with fresh tracks of them. Check on how they were doing. But just like the lion, they seem to be very, very relaxed, and I think we should head off and search for something that may be a little bit more active and entertaining for us. But we certainly are being spoilt this morning with some great quality sightings of, so far, two of the top carnivores in this area, the lion and the hyena. Oh, here we go. This is what we wanted. Oh, her belly is full. They had a great meal last night. Wouldn't it be interesting to know what they fed on? And look at that cub now. Incredible to believe that just a few months ago it was pitch black. Oh, and it looks like they are taking the stance here and they are deciding to leave as opposed to us deciding to leave. Just going to reposition slightly so we can make the most of the last glimpses we have of them. But it could be now that the adults are wanting to move off and get a little bit of peace and quiet now that they've fed their cubs. And this is common behavior to witness. The adults will come back, nurse the cubs, and then head off for as long as they need a break for, because if they stayed at the den, the cubs would permanently pester them for food and play. Oh. Looks like a bit of hierarchy being installed here. That youngster's acting very submissively to the two adults, and you can see they're certainly making it feel a little bit uneasy. And this is common within a hierarchical clan of hyena like this. They will constantly be reinforcing status between the different members of the clans, and the tricky thing for us is that it's very difficult to distinguish between male and female hyenas. So now I'm wondering if these two are both males, the two that are head-to-head now on the left of the screen. One is certainly a mother, we know that because she's just been suckling her cubs, but the two adults we can see now could possibly be males, and maybe the bigger of the two is the dominant male. Let's watch closely here what they're up to. Well, they seem to have diffused and all seems calm now, and it's very often the case. As long as the younger or smaller, less dominant animal acts submissively, and to act submissively means just basically to accept that you're weaker and lower yourself to the ground and act as unconfrontational as possible, the other members will respect that submissive behavior and therefore not attack or hurt the other animal. In Pennsylvania is interested to know why the younger hyena is with the members or of hyena to be, or various ages of hyena to be, all be within the same clan. There'll be various generations that grow up together in their clan or family, and therefore you can expect to get a variety of ages, just like a pride of lion. It's not just one male and one female that will go off and pair and raise their cubs. It's a whole family, extended family. And that will be a youngster from a previous litter. I think it could be a male, but like I said, it's very difficult to distinguish the sexes of these animals. Oh well, they have headed off. Not very far, but it's very thick where they're lying up now to our left, and they are continuing to go further away. So we will leave them to it. And go and see what else we can find. Leaving the PC coyote is no longer active. Can any station copy me? Morning, I'm just wondering if there's a final update on the Mafazi Ingwe scene around Buffalo's Dam. Confirm Ephraim had a Ingwe at Gari Dam. Go ahead. Okay, copy. Thanks very much, Texan. Head past the lion because it is on the way to where there is, or where we'll need to look for Karula, who's a female leopard. She was seen heading south away from Buffalo's Hook Dam, and we'll head into that area, but like I say, we'll head past the lion. On the way there we might find some potential prey animals that have come closer towards the lion and may provide us with a bit of action. Failing that, we'll continue into the general area where this female leopard was seen. Like I said a bit earlier, it is very thick in that area where Craig, the other game ranger, saw her, and she could well have moved out of that thick area now and be in an area more accessible to us. We don't see her very often, and I know that she hasn't been seen since I've been gone, and even before I left. I think the last sighting of her was about 10 days to 2 weeks ago, and she is a beautiful female leopard who's got a lot of history behind her, and it's actually her two sons that you would have seen last night with Mark. We're also hoping that she's pregnant again with her next litter, so it'll be great to see her again, to see if there are any changes on her belly. There does appear to be a small little bump on her belly that may be a sign that she's pregnant, but none of us are 100% sure yet. Although, like I say, we haven't seen her for close on 10 days to 2 weeks, and in that time her belly size may have changed considerably. It's a wonderful, cool morning. I believe there's been quite a lot of hot weather since I've been gone, and I'm really enjoying this crisp, cool morning. Earlier it was about 16 degrees Celsius, so 61 degrees Fahrenheit, just to give you an idea of the temperature. And now the sun's even beginning to poke out, so making for a beautiful morning. The animals are also playing their part, which is useful. Without them, we wouldn't have a show. And this morning, they certainly have been making our lives a lot easier. We started with the lion and went straight to the hyena den, where we got to see a little bit of interesting interaction between the take a moment to listen and watch their behavior. I'm not sure what they were running from. To be running away from something. Now, in windy weather like this, the prey animals can be skittish. Just like the hyena were holding up their heads, making sure there were no threats approaching. The herbivores will be very nervous because their sense of hearing basically becomes void to them. Well, it's not that it becomes void, but it becomes an unreliable source of detecting potential predators, because there are so many other noises that they can hear with the dry leaves rustling in the wind. So possibly they're just a little bit nervous because of the wind, or maybe they were being chased by something, but right now it seems to have calmed down, and it was even chewing the cud there momentarily. I was hoping some wild dog were going to pop up right behind them, hot on their heels. Maybe next time. also useful for us, also important for us to stop and assess scenarios like that, because what may appear to be a relatively small or minor event could actually lead to far greater sightings or implications. And to stop and listen for a minute or two certainly doesn't hurt, and every now and then you do get spoiled with some interesting sightings brought to your attention by what could be overlooked as a random event, like two impala that look a little bit flustered running past. They are quite close to these lions, so that's also something to bear in mind. Not close enough at the moment for anything to happen, but had those impala have run out like they did just ahead of us, they would have run straight into the lions. So again, a good example of how lions can be treated to it looks like we've got lucky. These lions appear to be up and about. They could be moving into the shade after this small little bit of sunshine popped out, but again, always hard to know exactly what causes them to move the way they do. Now, for those of you who have just joined more recently, we started off this morning watching these lions. They haven't moved very far. Well, basically they haven't really moved at all. They may have moved a couple of 100 feet since we found them.
We can go back. These are the only ones bringing me to
There are two lions just on our right that are doing a little bit of grooming. So I'll just try and get you into a better spot to see that. Now I can hear some birds alarm calling insistently ahead of us, and I'm wondering what it is that they're alarm calling at. I'm thinking it could be... Oh, there it is. It's the African area hawk doing its hunting. We've got to go. We've got to go. So, apologies, lion, but there's another predator that we need to go and see. And it's that same bird that we saw earlier that's obviously found a cavity in a tree, and it's busy trying to fish out whatever it can from there. So, I just want to try and get there as quickly as possible and make sure we don't run over a lion on the way there. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? So we're just going to keep a close eye on the lion and try and get to this as quickly as possible. I can't believe it's happened so soon. We were watching this bird a little bit earlier, hoping to see it hunting, and now it seems to have found a good spot. And there's a lot of smaller birds that are alarm calling and actually mobbing it. I don't want to go too close. This should probably work for now. Straight ahead of us in a knobthorn tree. And look at this. So it's just jumped off the branch where obviously there was a cavity in the tree, and it was hoping to pull out whatever bird or animals living in that cavity that the harrier hawk is trying to steal from. arm diving. There we go. That was actually the hornbill. So it may well be the hornbill's nest that it's trying to steal from, and now it's going to use these long legs that it can double joint and twist and contort in order to get it into these holes in order to pull out prey. Wow, this is interesting. Now, I'm not sure if I can reposition the vehicle. It would be wonderful to see the cavity. Oh, look, there's another one. Another African harrier hawk's arrived. And you'll notice that it's got its full pink breeding plumage. It's not only breeding plumage, it's plumage that they show when they're excited. And keep a close look, you'll notice its face is pink where the other one was yellow. And that face within just a few seconds can change back to its original yellow color. So that's interesting just to see, but we'll go back to the individual that's currently busy trying to fish out the prey, and you'll notice its face has gone pink now. Now obviously whatever it is that's hiding in there, it could be a young red-billed hornbill, maybe just out of reach of this African harrier hawk's talons, but it's still trying its best, holding on with one claw and using the other to fish around this cavity in the tree. Now its face has gone back to yellow, which I'm sure you've all noticed. So incredible to see how their coloration can change. The one up there on the tree is still pink. Now, it is interesting that this second harrier hawk has arrived on the scene. It could be that they're a mating pair, but only one of them can fish into a hole at a time. Oh, look at that one's getting attacked by a fork-tailed drongo as it flies off. Great work on camera there, Andrew.
It looked like it had something in its mouth. Looked like a snake or something.
No, I think you're imagining things, sadly. It's got nothing. It's got nothing there, but we're going to reposition ever so slightly to see if we can get a slightly better angle. And I really would like to show you a better angle on what it's doing. It's a bit of a gamble because I'm not sure if we're going to get a clear view, but it's a gamble worth taking.